we tell you where to stand, we just can't stop.
We gotta get it changed.
We're waiting for everyone to get their cameras adjusted so we can start the meeting.
There we go. Okay. I can't see whether it's recorded.
Don't worry about the camera.
Yeah.
Do you want to look at mine?
I can't because I'm gonna sit in my old seat. I won't be able to read it.
I mean, we can't pass notes back
I'm
and
gonna have to
forth?
wing it.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, we're going to start the meeting. I just want to point out that two members will not be here from council, namely Nick Molnar, who has some personal matters that he needs to handle, and also Shane Barker, who I understand is on vacation. As such, according to our law director and with help from our clerk of council, Josephine, I've been told that for that reason, the only ordinances that we will be able to consider tonight for a third reading will be ordinance number 5 and ordinance number 9. The remainder of the ordinances or resolutions, we will only be able to give them a first reading. So for that reason, we should have a fairly quick council meeting tonight, and hopefully we'll get done because at the conclusion of our council meeting, or I should say once we finish with the reports from the department heads and look at any old or new business, Mr. Deemer, our law director, has asked us to go into executive session to discuss personnel issues. We do have a public hearing tonight on the Robertson property. That will take place at 7:15, so we should have more than adequate time to go over our agenda. The first ordinance we're taking a look at is ordinance number 5, 2013. I had an opportunity to discuss this ordinance with all members of council here who are present, as well as the members of council who are not present. And the consensus among the group would be that we go ahead and reduce the fee to $50 and make this effective on September 1st, 2013. So I'd like to give this a third reading tonight and pass it. I don't know if there's any discussion at this point. I'd also like to take a look at ordinance number 9, 2013. This is an ordinance authorizing and directing the advertisement for bids for an electronic fingerprint time clock for use by city employees, and creating section 161.041 for the codified ordinances. I know that both Dave Engel, Rita Terrell, and Scott have been deeply involved in this, so any one of you is certainly, I would like you to address it and speak to it.
If I may, in response to some of the questions that have raised, I contacted my company, one of the companies that we obtained information from. I found out that they, on a daily basis, have 68,000 companies using their product. Over 1 million people actually use their product daily. The product that they're suggesting is a product that's made for construction, and it's actually, you can take it out and put it on the back of your pickup if you wanted to use it out there. So it's certainly a product that is used to dirt, dust, and debris and rough conditions. As we discussed before, it merely hooks into a telephone line. You need a telephone line, and that's all. Some of the issues were, can you, if the hands are dirty, and I was assured that numerous companies use this, including Exxon, the U.S. Coast Guard, Jiffy Lubes. He said that normally they would scan each of the pinky fingers, but he says there's no reason you couldn't scan all 10, and he certainly said that these machines work if there's blisters, if there's cuts, that dirt has not been a problem in the past. The lens is not actually a magnetic product, which he says has the same hardness as sapphire, and it's not subject to scratching. So I think these machines are something that are good. I think it's good for accountability. It's not a matter that we are not trusting people. We want to be forthright and make sure everybody is aware that we're being accountable to all the citizens. I think that this will speed up the payroll processing and be more accurate. So I'd ask people to support it.
Rita, you wrote a rather lengthy memo here.
Yes,
so
I did. And,
If, I'd like to give you the opportunity to review some of that research with council.
well, I asked Josephine a question because in the beginning of it, I was just kind of confused about something.
You probably shouldn't check me, you did, the money is in the budget. Scott said it is in the budget. This ordinance that you have is a different approach.
Right.
It's because we don't have that system.
Right.
It's authorizing the implementation of it. It also relates to the bidding of it.
Right, okay.
So I don't know how accurate that second half is, but
Right.
you shouldn't be really be asking.
Okay, well, I was just wondering about that, Scott, because last year when we appropriated money for the timekeeping, I was just curious how, if it's already been implemented into their budget and approved, that I was under the impression that you're supposed to actually be doing it. Does that make sense?
No, until that ordinance was passed, that was, the legislation just said to go ahead and advertise for it, get bids, and then at that time it was gonna be part of the budget process.
Well, no, last year
we did have that money
appropriated money
appropriated,
for it, so
right.
that's what I was
But we never
confused
went,
about.
we never went forward.
I just put this together, and so I was just going back from last year, because the timekeeping system was budgeted and appropriated through prior legislation, so it is not necessary to prepare and enact further legislation to proceed with its implementation once legislation was approved, which we did last year. Section 6.03E of the charter applies in proceedings with implementation, so I wanted to make sure with Josephine on that. So I just kind of put something together, and the key points, I can just say, Mr. Martin, I gave everybody a copy. Liability protection for workman's comp and other claims, city activity versus personnel activity, regulatory compliance, management tools, and cost, it's just cost savings altogether, and plus the mayor, everything would be, the mayor would be able to go to his desk and be able to see who's here, who's not, and he has control over that, and so does payroll, and so does accounting. And when I attended the audit meeting at the end, when they were doing the report, I learned from the auditors, you know, we were talking about it, and because there was an incident even, they said that the way we did our timekeeping here, that it would be smart to do. Most places do have a time reporting, and it would be a lot more simplified, and that's what they were telling me. And I mean, anybody can ask the auditors themselves. I just asked them a couple questions about it, only because this was something that I was trying to look at. But this is very lengthy. I gave everybody a copy. If anybody would like a copy, I have extra copies. So,
Dave, does the ordinance include the fire department and the police department?
No, they're not included because of the fact that they're called directly to the scene. They always have to call in on to the dispatch to say that they're on the scene, and that would take care of it. You agree with that, Scott?
Yeah, safety forces were exempt, because they gotta check on the dispatch.
How many times are policemen called from home to come? Yeah, is that a common occurrence?
I have no idea.
So that's, I'm taking that as a no.
Oh, I don't know, I can't speak to the operations of the police department.
I certainly can. I can't support this as long as all employees are not involved.
If you'd like to make an amendment, more than happy to.
I will,
Second.
if you'd like. Thanks.
Do you have police radio at all, Mike? Cause I do, and I listen to them check in. They have to call dispatch.
dispatch could have a little clock where they could punch in the policeman or the fire.
But it's on record.
Well, Mike, like in Cleveland, since they have Cleveland's so large, they have so many fire departments and so many police departments, you know, different areas, they have to have it, only because of what happened in the city, to keep them in compliance, and so, but here, we're just so little. Do you know what I mean? I mean, we're
All
just,
the
we
more-
don't
all the more reason they
have,
should
we don't have
clock in.
three fire departments in the city. You know what I mean? We're little, so I mean, to think about that as well, when it comes to the police and fire.
Scott, you were involved in this, I'd like to hear from you.
I think a uniform system for some departments would be worthwhile, because we have so many people at different locations for service departments. When I was with Prevar, you know, there were some issues there on doing the swipe cards and the time clocks, and it was always, Sharon had to amend with some of the controls. Some of the process problems was because the old time system, if you clocked in early, it wouldn't recognize that it was on time. And if you clocked in late, obviously it had to be amended also. So the argument was that if a guy came in at 7 o'clock early, he had to wait till 7:30 to clock in. So if he clocked in prior to his 5-minute window, say if he came in at 7 or 7:15, he still needed to clock in within 5 minutes of 7:30 to be recognized that it was a valid time. If you clocked in earlier, it would show up as an error code, and then they'd have to go back and research it on payroll, but it took a lot of time.
Certainly we could program these clocks to be able to handle those small variants here and there.
John, do you have any comments, please?
I don't know that you, Scott looked into that, and I don't know that you can get around doing that. I know Glen Nickel, for instance, comes in approximately an hour early, and my understanding is you have to clock in within 5 minutes of your allotted start time. Now, we get early calls, we get late calls, guys will come in, set up their car, and then go into dispatch or get a cup of coffee, do whatever, and if a call comes in early, instead of the night shift holding over and answering that call within 15 minutes or so of the end of their shift, the day shift guy will just go get it because he's here and the night shift guys want to go home. If that's the case, he's either going to be late or clock in early, or you're going to have to make adjustments for that. There are some issues with that.
That's under the old system.
No. We don't clock in right now. They call in on the radio and they're just here. We know they're here, but under the clock system, there are some issues with clocking in early. My understanding was you can't clock in early or it registers that you're in, and you have, I think Jim may have researched it, you have to pay them when they're theoretically here.
Yeah.
Scott looked into it a little bit more. That was my understanding of it, is you
People
just
come
can't
in
have a
early,
clock in and say,
they're supposed to be paid early.
they're supposed to be paid when they clock in.
My wife, when she was working at one facility, they literally lined up at the clock. You know, if you were supposed to start at 7:30, everyone had to wait there at 7:25 and then all swiped in at the same time. You weren't allowed, you'd be penalized and you'd lose your bonus if you swiped in early.
Because you have to pay them.
Yeah.
So it may be difficult for my folks because the calls just come in, and if it means going on a call, a crash that's gonna take an hour, and a guy's here 15 minutes early, he'll take the call. You know, it doesn't make any sense to have the night shift guy hang around. He wants to go home, he's tired, and he's gonna give him overtime. The guy just take it. So that could cause some issues there.
Jim,
Yes, sir.
please.
We have basically the same problem. There's a lot of guys that come in, they start at 6:30, but they'll be there at 5:06. And it's happened to myself, it's happened to quite a few of the men. You come in at 10:06, 6:15, or 5:06, and you can't punch in, so you start working or you're doing something, then all of a sudden you see that now you're late. A lot of times they would punch in at 6:35, 6:45, because they forgot. They were there and they started working, they forgot to, swipe their card, so there was a problem. But it's the same thing, you would have to wait, because if you didn't, what was happening to Sharon, who was doing the time cards, is that she would have to go back and say they punched in at, because we were in the beginning, we were punching as soon as we came in the door. It was 10 after, 5 after, quarter after, it showed up as overtime. So she would have to correct, you know, call the company, and then I had literally slips that said, I punched in, or I forgot to punch in, you know, it was too late, you know. It was kind of a hassle if you have to wait to the exact second, because like I say, a lot of people come in early, like John's men, about a cup of coffee, they'll, you know, get their trucks ready, paperwork, or put, you know, their work clothes on. So sometimes it presents a problem.
Angela?
The majority of my department is part-time, and we have a time clock system in place. They do all swipe in and swipe out. We don't have a problem with that system. That works well for us. My full-time staff, we're not set 9 to 5. We're open 15.5 hours most days, so our shifts are all spread out throughout the week and the weekends, covering events and programs. Many of them are off-site. Many of them are in different cities. Meetings in different cities, organizational meetings, swim meets, away soccer games, things that coordinators attend. It would, it'd be inconvenient, I think, because a lot of times they go straight to these places if they're closer from their home, or they go straight home from these places if they're closer. I've done the same thing. I don't know. It'd be a little inconvenient. I know in our job, a lot of what we do is public relations. We're done maybe at 6 o'clock. We may be on our own personal time and work out, but yet we get pulled aside and we start working again an hour later, 2 hours later, talking to patrons. There's a problem in the pool. Just the other night there was a problem in the pool. I was done for the day at 6 o'clock. I worked out till about 6:45 and I didn't leave till after 9. But that's time I don't claim because I was already done for the day. So I don't know how those times would be accounted for.
Mr. Mayor, could you give us your thoughts, please?
I'm amazed at our short memory for the people that got us through some of the toughest times Macedonia's ever seen. I think if somebody could point out an instance to me during which somebody wasn't here, they claimed that they were here, maybe that would help a little bit. But I had people who for 3 years didn't get a raise, for 3 years. They didn't even have the ability to get coffee. We had to buy our own coffee, or coffee had to be supplied to us by one of our businesses. So one of the things that happened during that time is the mayor got a lot of respect for the workers in this community called our city hall, in their ability to do more with less, to give up themselves. Many times there were instances where people would stay here to get something done if it was payroll, or no matter what it was, and would do it off the clock. But those are all the kind of things the administration knows and council doesn't. So the theory that this is good because it keeps tighter control over the people who work here, to me, it all revolves around respect. Respect for me, that they're here when they're supposed to be here, doing what they're supposed to do. And I have respect for them. As far as the time clock issue goes, I think it started just within the last year, but really we have to remember, we have to go back 3 years. I have multiple occasions when I have department heads talking to me at 9 o'clock at night, and we don't keep track of that time. They're on call, I'm on call, and it's just offensive to them, like they're suspected of doing something less than giving their very best. And that's hard for people to accept after we've been through what we've been through. I hope that's concise enough.
That's very concise. Does anyone here feel that by doing this, that this is tantamount to punishment or lack of trust. You know, the mayor, or maybe perhaps not appreciating what our employees have done through this lean period that they brought the city through.
That's not why I'm opposed to the legislation, I don't feel that way at all.
Oh, Rita?
No, I think it's just a no-brainer. I mean, what if, like, you know, you service people working and then they're in the cars, if there's accidents, it's to protect them. It's to protect us. There's a lot of different things that can happen. And it's just, I've written it all out in here, reasons, you know, to support this. Since Dave brought it back up again this year, because I mean, it's broke down in there, and it's to protect us as a city, and it's to protect them, the employees. For, you know, if someone says that they weren't on the job or whatever, yeah, they were. They're punched in.
Mike, how do you feel?
I had a question first. Does this cover department heads?
It's written, yes.
I know that in every job I had, unless I was working for myself, I had to punch in. At the fire department, at the service department, driving Unimugs, snow plows, everything. I had to punch in someplace. Somebody had to be informed that I was there and ready to work. And they knew when I was not there, ready to work. Mayor makes a good argument, Dave makes a good argument. I think it's in the best interest of the employees, and I think our citizens are demanding that we show them our work. And I'm sure when you're having chest pains, you don't really care if that firefighter was punched in or not. But it's gotta come in to get the ambulance on its way. Police department has to respond to that call, my car's been broken into, he has to come to work, come in a car. And there are exceptions, and this ordinance should allow for exceptions, or management can come up with an exception for the rare and occasional time that there needs to be a handwritten time in or time out. That should not be a mortal sin to do that.
You know, Scott, you've been an advocate of this. Am I mistaken when I say that?
I think there was some need for certain areas that was pointed out to me. I know for I keep track of my hours, and Patty keeps track of them. When I leave tonight, I'll email her what time I'm leaving. And I can easily say, because we're a small department and also we're located one side of the building, the hours accountability for my staff is 100%. I know, other than the fact that I don't have any idea, if Patty comes in at 7:30, I really don't know if she's coming in at 7:40, because I usually come in between 8 and 8:15. But everyone else comes in after me, and so I know when I look at their timesheets, it's correct. And so, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I don't have a problem punching the clock myself. I'm not offended by it. It won't affect my department one bit, and they won't mind it either.
Well, you work here every day in the city. You're obviously in touch with all of the department heads. Certainly you work with the mayor. You've heard what they have to say. How do you respond to that, or how do you feel about that?
I think that some departments might benefit with it, because they're when you have a crew of 15 people out there and you have no one that's accountable, how do you know when or someone from a different location is actually there? We've got 3 or 4 facilities in the service department. We actually, you know, other than the time clock. But see, that's not my problem. My problem is just managing my staff, and then also making sure when payroll comes to us that we don't have to edit it, or the edited payroll portions are correct. So each department head should be accountable for their own people in some fashion.
You also are involved in the finances of the city. Do you see a benefit?
Yes. I know when I implemented time clocks at Fulton, for the part-time fire department, our total expenses went down for salary and wages by over $20,000 the next year. With more call volume.
How did the use of these devices impact that downward?
I think maybe people, you know, I'm not saying, when you're doing a timesheet and you're not, you know, if you go back and can you tell me exactly what time, maybe you can, but last week, Monday, when you started and when you stopped. It's awful tough unless you're writing it down every morning. When I come in, I have a piece of paper and I write down, I started Thursday, 3:14, 8:15, and I'll do that when I leave. And before I leave though, I'll email Patty, and it goes to her computer to know that I'm out. It's coming from my computer, it's going to hers, and it keeps track of it for me. I punched a clock at Canal Fulton, I didn't have to, but because all my other employees did, I didn't have a problem doing that. Because it kept track of how many hours I was also giving the city for free.
Is there anything else that needs to be added at this point?
Only the point of view as an administrator, I'm most interested in the amount of work I get. If somebody punches in at 7, punches out at 3, did they give me 8 hours of work?
That's true.
Now, somebody can punch in and go sit, have coffee and gossip or whatever. That's not a big factor to me when something needs to be done, if they do it and do it quickly and efficiently. The city hums like a clock. We have very, very few problems. We have come so far within the last year, 2 years, compared to where we were. And it's by the amount of work that my employees are doing. So is it about the hours? If it's about the hours and the actual pay per hour, then I can see benefits to having time clocks. But for instance, the department heads are exempt. They're not on hours. They're paid salary. So that department head has to do what needs to be done, and I don't really care if it takes them till 10 o'clock at night. But I don't have any complaints, the work gets done, and therefore I'm assuming that everything is very, very good now. We don't have a lot of problems with things that are caused by employees not doing their job or not doing their work. As far as saving money and the time-wise, it's different than the work-wise. So as a mayor, I look at the work done more than I look at the time. That's mine.
Anything else?
What do you think about it, Mr. Martin, about the timekeeping?
I don't know, I've heard a lot of opinions. I guess we'll get a chance to vote on it. We're gonna have that for third reading tonight. I'm gonna take 5, and Dave, you'll take number 9.
Sure.
What I'd like to do is just, since we have a public hearing in about 15 minutes, I want to go through these next items rather quickly, since we don't need to discuss them. We're missing 2 council members, and in addition to that, we can only give a first reading on each one due to the
Or a
absence.
second. Excuse
Pardon?
me, Ken, or a second. We have some that had first, we can give them a second, can we?
Oh, we can?
Yeah.
Number 25.
You're only allowed to give it a reading.
A
So if
reading.
it's at 1, then you can give it its second reading.
Oh, okay.
If it's new, it'll only be the first reading. If it's at 2, then you can give it its third reading.
There's only a couple like that, so.
Yeah. So ordinance number 21, David, why don't you take that on second reading? Ordinance number 25, we've got the public hearing tonight. Mr. Miller, could you take that for a second reading, please?
Yes.
Resolution number 28. Rita, why don't you take resolution number 28 for its first reading, please? And resolution number 29, pardon?
Yeah.
29. Resolution acknowledging and approving the Director of Finance on behalf of the City of Macedonia, a grant for financial assistance from the State of Ohio Natural Resources under the Nature Works Grant Program for the revitalization of Sugar Bush Park. Scott, would you like to speak to this for a couple minutes?
Sure, it's a playground equipment that we value at roughly $40,000. Our share would be 25%, so about $10,000 if we get it. And you have a schematic copy of it. It's the same vendor that we used last year. We bought playground equipment at Longwood Park, and we took down the old playground equipment that was wood and pressure treated, and it was in disrepair unsafe piece of equipment from a liability standpoint also, so we'd like to replace it at the same place by that baseball field. And this is the actual piece of equipment with the installed, and then from what I understand, Snyder also offered a small rebate that would amount to $7,000. So with that rebate, we could still keep the equipment at $40,000 and actually maybe get 2 swing sets along with it, from what I understand. So, and the other one, that's the other grant, is basically the same grant that we're applying for, but it comes at a different timeline also. So if we get approved under one of the grants, probably more likely the Nature Works grants would fit this project better, but because they offered another one, this Land and Water Conservation Fund, we applied to the same identical grant for both funds to see if we can get one of them.
Mr. Miller, would you like to take resolution number 29?
It would be my pleasure. I wanted to ask the mayor if he got any feedback about our new playground equipment along. Have you heard anything?
Oh, well, all the time, all the time. People just absolutely love it. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Well spent money.
Mike, in that vein, why don't you take resolution number 30 also? And we have ordinance number 31, 2013, an ordinance ratifying the decision of the Board of Review Macedonia Occupancy Program Audit Committee's decision granting the appeal of Great Day Improvements LLC and amending the MOP agreement with that company. Mr. Mayor, could you speak to that, please?
Yes.
I can take that if you wanted to.
Well, we're gonna give it first reading.
Right.
So,
Just-
there's discussion, that needs to be had on this because, this has to do with making an exception to a MOP and changing it. We do have a committee, the committee met, the committee discussed it and came up with one solution, but it's still at council's pleasure whether we actually do anything or not. Do we want to be tough? Do we want to stand by what was in writing? Or do we want to bend because of extenuating circumstances? And that's the basis for this coming before you. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll supply, I know that with the absence of 2 council people tonight, I didn't want to go into great detail and with you with all the information, but basically what it boils down to is the original MOP agreement that GDIC entered into with the city of Macedonia that could have gave them as much as $50,000 in MOP payments. They did not, in my view, and the law director's view, quite make the cut. They were supposed to have so many employees, and they were supposed to meet a substantial amount of payroll. Neither one of them met it. And, you know, it's like kicking a field goal. You know what? You're a foot off. You didn't make the points. And, but so there is an appeals process, and we did have the Tax and Review Commission to look at that. And they thought, you know, because of other extended circumstances that we'll go into later, that they thought that maybe that we should modify it or, again, make a payment to them. I'm against it, and I'll roll out because I think it's gonna set a precedent that, you know, are we gonna look backwards and let everyone else that missed it? So I'll give everyone full detail and because there's no check that's gonna be cut unless council approves it.
Okay, thank you. Rita, would you like to take ordinance number 31, 2013? We have ordinance number 32, 2013. Mr. Mayor, is this something you would like to speak to?
Nothing but an agreement between us and ODOT for cutting and maintaining.
Rita, could you handle that also? And we've got ordinance number 33, we're just renaming a street here, I believe. Rita, could you also handle ordinance number 33?
Hey, while we're on that real fast though, Mr. Martin, this street over here, this has to do with planning, which made me think of that because
Yes.
that bridge, I believe the mayor sent you some pictures, for fun and stuff.
Sure.
You cannot see their business, I don't know if you know that or not, but they came to us for the signage and everything, and we really need to get them an okay to, be able to put their sign up. And I'm to mention it to you, so I'm mentioning it now that I.
Yeah. I know, I read that.
Okay,
thanks.
did you see how you cannot, I mean, their business is gonna be extremely affected by it. And the sign, I went and I checked it out and everything, where the sign's gonna go, and it's gonna look very nice, and it's where when you're coming off the bridge, you'll be able to see their establishment.
Yeah.
Okay, and they really do need it.
What I'd like, Rita, if you could take the time, you did a good job here.
Okay.
Why don't you write council a memo on it, and that way you can outline the issues and make your
Okay.
case.
Sounds good.
Appreciate that. Ordinance number 34, 2013. We're gonna do a first reading on this ordinance, and this merely brings council's pay in line with the requirements for PERS. Rita, would you like to take this one too?
Well, Scott has something, he sent everybody an email, because I had asked Scott, because this is gonna affect Mr. Molinar and I.
Well, what I'd like to do is, I would like Scott to go into this when all of the
Okay.
council people are here. We're just gonna
Alright.
do a first reading on this. Because of the nature of this issue, and because of the information Scott has,
Right.
I've been able to discuss a little bit of it preliminarily, but I think I would feel much more comfortable if we had all of our council people
All right.
here. Okay, so you can do that ordinance number 34. Is there anything else we need to take a look at this point?
I have a very quick comment. Looking through some of the resolutions and ordinances with the originator and the sponsor, I don't think that they're being filled out according to the statute that was passed earlier. So
I believe that they are.
It's,
all
well,
right. Okay.
it says here, Josephine, it says an ordinance requiring that all new ordinances and resolutions brought before council of the city of Macedonia include A, the identification of the originator and the ordinance and or a resolution, and the identification of a member of council sponsoring such ordinance. The sponsor has to be sponsored by a council member.
The only way ordinances or resolutions ever come before council are through council or the mayor's office.
Well,
That's the, and in every case that you have in there, every ordinance that you see, the person who's the sponsor is the person who asked for the legislation, the originator, I should say,
Mhm.
and the sponsor is one who's going to read it and who's going to sponsor it. So, each one that you have,
what do you mean read it and sponsor it?
Yeah.
well, the sponsor technically should be the one who's offering it.
Right, well, well, that's what we're saying, it's not like that in some things.
Well, the person whose name is on there should be the one who's offering it.
Well, for example, I'm not trying to get into a big argument, it sounds like we are, but, you know, I'm looking at one, mayor with the word, the originator and the sponsor, I think the statute says that it should have a council as a sponsor.
Yeah.
Well, we could leave that blank, and then we could probably just leave that blank, and I can handwrite it in.
That's fine.
Ordinance 34 by
Rita?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's me. Where's that one at? I thought we were in 34. Okay.
34.
You have 4 now.
Yeah, all right. I thought it was
Okay, we have a
35.
public hearing in about 5 minutes. I'd like everybody to give everybody
Oh.
5 minutes to freshen up.
Before I forget,
Yes.
this was in my mailbox, and I look at everything in my mailbox. You had sent I believe you sent it to Township of Northfield Center. You sent him a request for a public records request.
Correct.
And in it, it says a full facsimile containing an email from Rita Darrell. I sent no email to anybody, and I want to clarify that. This was in my mailbox, and I just want you to know, I did not send an email to Northfield Center, Northfield, or anybody, but this is stating I did.
Good.
All right?
Thank you.
It's the
I did,
origin.
I did not do this. Whoever did this, it wasn't me. And I wish somebody would have asked me before they sent something like that.
Everybody's good.
Thank you. We got 5 minutes to prepare for our public hearing.
Still, seriously, I mean, this is still, I don't like
Strong as a bull.
God bless you and for what you do. Thank you. Been in the city for 25 years.
Really?
Yes,
You ready for your close-up here, guys?